I've got this beautiful, beautiful tomato, and I'm just going to sit it on, since I don't have a live tomato with me, I'm just going to have it sitting over on my desk. And then I've got some brushes and I've got a pencil, and this is a 3mm pencil. 5mm are great. I think it's just a pencil that won't make a lot of graphite smears. So usually mechanical pencils like an HB, I would suggest that. And then just get your paints in water containers. I've got my little water container, brushes. I've got a variety just to show you. I want to just try different ones. And I wasn't sure what we were going to do today, so I just have all my little brushes out. So, and then I've got my palettes, and I've got some with paint already in them. I'm going to make a horizon for it. Well, actually, I'll start. I'm going to just put it in kind of in the center, but not smack dab, because things in the center just don't really work really well. So I'm just going to make kind of a round shape, and this one is kind of a round. It's sort of a round shape. It's not perfectly round. I don't know if you see, I hope you see that. It's just a round shape at about, and it's that kind of not perfectly round. And now I'm going to make a horizon for it because it needs a horizon. I don't want to just have it floating under nothing. So I'm just going to make a horizon going across. If you want to have it sitting on a plate or something, you can do that. But these are very simple lines. We're going to do very simple things here. We have to, when we're looking at an image, and I'm going to just show you this again, we think about the light and where the light's coming from, or this is a very diffused light on this tomato because somebody shot it in a, obviously in a studio, but we can pretend where the light's coming from. So now I'm going to take, I'm going to draw the leaves or whatever the little stem is, and I'm going to make that kind of coming from right here. So I'm making kind of another curve, and I'm going to make the stem or the little part that comes out, and I'm going to go to about right here. And I can just use this picture as a guide. It's not really, I can just do however I want. I'm going to make the shape. I see that I kind of would like to change that actually. So I'm going to just change it, and I can always erase. There we go, like that. And erasers are your friend when you're working, when you're sketching. Go ahead and use an eraser if you find you need to do that. There's nothing wrong with having an eraser. I love this little guy. I have this little eraser that does, I just love it because I'm able to get little fine areas with it. Those are fun. So now I'm just going to take now the leaf, and I'm going to bring it up above. I'm just going to be more stylized, I think, than the picture is. So I'm just going to make this leaf shape here, and then another one going over like this, and maybe one going like kind of like curved. And really, this can be, because it's a tomato, but it doesn't have to be a total likeness. So I'm just going to make kind of just this drawing kind of go out. There we go, like that. So it's kind of looking like the actual tomato that I'm looking at. And then you want to erase any lines. Like here, I have that line that I just want to erase that because my lines are going to show, most likely they'll show in the painting. Once you put watercolor over a line, then the watercolor kind of seals it in and it's hard to erase afterwards. So there, I've got like a little start. I can see where the light needs to be. I see where my shadow needs to be. I've got a real simple design here. I see I wiggled the line. And I'll have to tell you, if you get, I've got one of those ocular migraines that just started about just as we started class. And it kind of made me draw wiggly because that's kind of what I'm seeing. So I apologize for that. And now I'm starting to see a little bit better now in the center part because it starts in those really weird migraines. They start kind of in the center of your eye field of vision and then they move outward. So right now it's kind of moving out. So now I can see what I'm doing. So now I've got a little drawing and I'm just going to keep it real simple. We only need a couple colors here, really, red and green, and some other colors just to make shadows. So right now, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to start. So this, I'm going to start with I think the green would be fun to start with instead of, the red. I'm going to get some green, and I can see when you look at this tomato, I'm sorry if you don't have one there, but maybe you following along will help, but you can see the green. It's kind of a beautiful, very nice pure green with dark and light kind of going on. So I am going to mix up some green here, and let's see. I'm going to use this brush just to make the colors. to mix up the color. So I'm going to use this really nice green. I'm not sure what this is, who this is, but it's a pretty nice, kind of a yellow green. So I want to have kind of a mixture of that. And then I'm going to add some dark green too, but I just kind of want a variety of green. Just one green by itself would not really be a good thing. So got enough of that yellow green. Now I'm going to just get some of my favorite, I don't know what that green is. Oh, this is another yellow green. No, I'll skip that. I'm going to take a Cascade Green, which is, I have to say, my very favorite so far of all the Daniel Smith colors. If you're going to get a green, this Cascade Green is fabulous. It's just a gorgeous green. So I'm going to use that. And if I've got another dark green here, I'm not sure if this, I don't remember what green that is, but I think that's a nice green. So just get a variety. I don't know what this one is. I'm going to see. That's not green. That's kind of a rust brown, so I don't want that. So I'm just going to stay with my greens. I think I've got a nice variety here. So now I've got something to work with. I can always put some Payne's gray or something like that later. So we're just starting with our greens right now. And I could see I need to, oh, that's all right. So now I'm going to look at my tomato picture, and I'm just going to block in the green in this yellow green right now, because that's kind of the dominant color. So I'm just going to block it in. Let's see, tomatoes falling off my, just going to take a fairly wet wash of this yellow green, which kind of is a nice color because it will be like a highlight, a nice highlight color. And I don't see where I need to keep any of the whites. So I'm just going to go ahead and cover the whole, these leaves completely in the yellow green, just to start. And I kind of need to work fast. We need to keep our areas wet while we're doing this. So if you find that it's going to be drying a little bit, just go back over your original where you were at. But let's do all the little leaves on this tomato in one color, of just like a yellowish green or a light green, and just do the whole thing, the stem and the leaves. And just keep it wet. So that means I'm just going to go over those areas I first painted and just kind of make sure I keep those wet. You can kind of keep an eye on it. You'll see when something is kind of looking like it's drying out. You just want to keep it wet. So I'm just going to do that here, and then I'm just going to pull. Really, it's just basically kind of like a star, right? There's 5 leaves here, and they can be of any style or shape. I mean, really, tomato leaves have that pointy, long, at least the part on the top of the tomato, pointy and long and kind of curly a little bit. So I've got that, and I'm going to keep that wet, right? I want to make sure that stays wet. And this needs to stay wet. So now that we've got that first layer, and I'm going to take some darker green, some of this Cascade Green, and I'm just going to drop it in, kind of in the center, and just kind of let these colors sort of blend together a little bit. And I think maybe a nice blue, like a Payne's gray, would be a nice one to have too. But see how I'm just kind of dropping that color in, or that darker green in the center, and I'm going to let it sort of blend out. Just kind of bring it, you can bring, you've got, there you go. You can just keep kind of moving it out until you get it to the effect you want. But you know that some greens will migrate. This one's blending just nicely and it's just kind of spreading out. And of course, now I need to wait. Patience is a virtue here. It's just waiting for this to dry, because what we need to do is that needs to dry before we go to the next step. So let's do the under the tomato. So I'm going to take a slightly bigger brush, and I want to decide what my color of my table or my surface that that tomato's sitting on. We could do a background if we want, but we're just going to start with something here. So I'm thinking it'd be fun to do maybe a blue color, because the tomato's bright red. So maybe a nice blue, some kind of blue. So I'm not a real bright blue, but maybe, oops, this one's thing just went crazy here. Here we go. So here we've got, maybe this is pretty, maybe the indigo or something kind of along, just a blue color. I'm just going to pick a blue and not make it too not too much, not too dark to start. But we want to just, while we're waiting for that to dry, that green area, we can just lay down some the foundation or the blue that we want to, the surface that the tomato's sitting on. So what you want to do is you just want to go in kind of light. So I'm just taking sort of, I don't know what this color is. This is kind of a mixture of ultramarine blue and indigo. And I'm just going to put it down right below where the tomato edge is. And along that horizon. And I want to do it kind of quickly, sort of, this is actually not that wet, unfortunately. I've got to go quickly because it dried. This paper I'm using is a brand I don't use that often. And I'm noticing it dries really quick. So I'm just going to move quickly. So it depends on the paper you have. So I've filled it up with lots of water. And now I'm just going to move quickly across the horizon, the little place that I made that tomato edge. I'm going to go around the tomato edge, and I'm moving across. And I did mask my paper off with washi tape. If you did that, that's good. If you didn't, that's okay too. Just go to the edge of your paper. So now I've got a nice wash here for the base of for the table or whatever that surface it's on, or the countertop, whatever it is. And this does dry fairly quick. So now I'm just going to kind of make some lines, kind of giving that horizon feel. And then I can drop in some color. I think I'll make a shadow, even though I haven't made I'm going to make a shadow under the tomato, even though I haven't made the tomato yet. So I've just picked up some kind of a Payne's gray color. I'm going to just drop it under the tomato, the shape, just to give it that shadow. And I'm going to also just kind of bring it across like this. So and it's good to do it while your blue is, the first area is still wet, because you will, oops, which one's that color? It'll blend nicely and it'll look more like a shadow. I'm just going to add a little bit more of that color, it's a pretty color, and I wish I'd labeled these paints because I have no idea what they are, but it's sort of a cross between a indigo and a Payne's gray. Maybe it's a Payne's gray. So I'm just creating that shadow. It's kind of a soft shadow, and I can always build on it later. And that's that for the tomato. I could go maybe a little, I should look at my picture a little bit. Oops. There it is. Okay, now I'm just creating a whole new shadow here. So now I've got the kind of a base here. I can also do the background and still wait to work on the tomato. But I don't know if I want to do a background or not. We'll see. I think as this is dry enough to start working, but maybe a background might be smart. So we're going to just work on the tomato last. So I think the background would be fun in a kind of a yellowish color, because now we're looking at a red tomato, a blue surface to sit on, and a yellow color. So now we have primary colors. I think this is going to be really pretty. And you can use a mixture of yellows, yellow ochre, kind of, I think I'm going to use some raw umber. I'm going to move it around here. I'm going to move my palette here. I'm going to grab some of these yellowy colors. They don't have to be bright yellow, but just something on the yellow scale of yellows. So I'm just going to pick some of this. This is I believe it's it's Holbein. This is Holbein raw umber, and the other one is raw sienna. So I think those would be a really nice, with maybe some real yellow. These are very dry, so I need to really saturate them to get the color out. I need plenty because this is a large surface, so large area I need to cover. You can make your background have patterns in it, but we can just start with a nice wash first. Okay, I think I've got enough there, and I'll just maybe add a little of this kind of, I don't know what this color is, but it's nice. I'll put that in that dish, or this part. And then maybe real yellow, some nice, this is a nice, kind of it's a beautiful yellow. It's pretty intense. It's like an Indian yellow, they call it. I'll maybe put that in here. So I'm just going to go ahead. Now that this is all dried because I've been taking my time, I'm going to do the background. And I'm going to go ahead, and I could start with a wet wash. I'm going to turn it over because I'm not going to even worry about just turning the whole thing over, and I'm going to concentrate this background on this, just in the around the tomato shape. This is a really good way to do, sometimes just working with large shapes like that, you do the backgrounds first. So I'm going to go ahead and load it with lots of water, and I have to move quickly because this paper is sort of wants to dry fast. So I'm moving fairly quickly across the whole thing, and I'm going to just do it and keep my brush loaded with water and color. I think this yellow is going to be really fun. I'm just going to move as fast as I can across, and that will really help so that you won't have dried areas. If you're just moving along where the wet parts are, then you won't have areas that dry, and it will make for a much better background. You won't see areas where looks like you had stopped and started again. There we go. That's nice and wet there, and now I've got it right there. So I've got a background already. So see, the painting's almost done, right? So, and now you see the tomato shape. So there it is. I'm just going to kind of leave it like that. Let it, maybe just kind of lighten it up a little. If you have areas you want to lighten, you just think, oh, I got too much color. You can always blot it a little bit if you want. See, I just blotted some of that out. But I kind of like that color. But just so you know, you can just kind of play. So this is a very nice wet wash and very smooth, but I wanted to make it a little darker. I could. I might even just put a little of that brown color I earlier had put down. Just put that right there. Just kind of let that dry. I'm not going to play with it too much. There's some more of that brown. Maybe I'll stick it across there. Okay, so I'm going to let that sit. And now this has to dry. This part here has to dry. So I could make more shadow, or I could just give that. We don't want our reds to bleed into any of this stuff because that would really be a mess. So this needs to dry. So we'll give it a minute. I don't have my, what is that called? My heat gun today. But I'll just let that, I think that's probably dry enough. As long as I don't bring the red to that edge, it'll be all right. And now this is the time we're going to need a lot of red. And probably, if you're looking at your tomato, you can see this is a red, but it's kind of a very orangey red. So it's not, there's no purple in it. I don't see any purple, but we could, for shadow purposes, add some purple. So I've got this in here that's already there. I'm going to add, I've got a red that I really like to use. It's part of the collection here, but these in this range here would be really nice to have a nice red. Now, reds are really difficult. So, of course, why do they pick a red for you guys? But a red vegetable. But I think we're going to have fun with it. Just get some reds that are, if you have some transparent reds, like quinacridone red or any of those reds, when you put them in your tray. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to set this aside for a second. I'm going to, this little iPad keeps slipping on my table. I think so far it's drying in time anyway. So all my talking, it's going to work. So I'm just going to mix up a variety of reds. So this is a really nice red. This is just a kind of opaque red though. I don't like to mix this with a lot of colors. It's just it's a pretty strong red. It's not very transparent, so I have to be careful when I use it. Then I've got, try to look at this red, see what this one's like. That's very pink, but if I add a little yellow to it, that would be a beautiful red. It's more transparent, so I'll use that. If you have anything, just try to get a variety of reds and put them in your palette. This is more of a purple red, I don't want that. So just kind of look for some good reds. I don't know what this one is, let's see. This one is nice, okay. So now, we're ready to do our tomato, I think. So just get some reds, and if you only have one red, that's okay. Just whatever you have in red color. Or if you don't have red and you just have magenta, you can use your magenta and a yellow to make that red. Okay, so now I'm going to put, this is a pretty wet, I think I'm going to change my brush. This will hold too much water probably. But, well, what the heck, I'm going to try it. So you'll notice if you have water that's green, you want to have fresh water that's for your reds, because the green water will taint your red colors. So let's do a light wash of red, just a light wash, starting, it's just wherever you want to start it on your tomato. So I'm just going to start it, and then noticing that it's just a little, there we go. This might be too dark, but as you know, watercolors do dry lighter. So, because we're going to try to retain our light color. So I'm just going to go to the edge of the blue. And I'm just going to move fairly quickly to make this light wash. And I'm going to try to keep it lighter kind of in this area here where I want light to be. So it's probably good to just kind of make it a light wash, kind of make your wash a little lighter as you go around, and really move quickly, because you can see mine is already drying here. So just have to move fast and just join these little areas. I don't want to cover up my leaves. And I could use a rag if I want to use a rag to, there we go, I'm just going to make this, mix this little yellow and red. There we are. And just kind of go around your, this brush totally wets everything. And I need to just keep moving quickly to keep those areas wet where I'm painting. And you just want to go around this. Now I could have masked this off, these little leaves. I could have masked those off if I wanted to with some masking fluid after I painted the green, but I'm not doing that right now. So just going to go around and kind of fill it in quickly so that all my colors kind of blend. And I do see drying areas. So if that happens, like it is for me, I'm just going to go a little bit more bold right down at that bottom area here. With a little bit more paint. Let me just show you what I'm doing there. Okay. And there we go. So now I'm just going to re-wet that area because it just started to dry. And I haven't painted this area in. That's okay because I have the little areas where the leaves kind of block that anyway. So here we've got that here. So this is the first layer only. Now I'll just take a lighter amount of paint and I'll just fill in these little places above the leaves. Trying to get all those in. And this brush holds a huge amount of water. So it's just a little different working with it than if I were to use a different brush. But I'm just going to challenge myself a little bit and try using this brush throughout the whole painting and just see if I can control my amount of water or color that I put in. So there we go. That's the first layer, almost done. And now at least you can see on your end, you can see the shape that we're working with, just a simple off, not roundish, not perfectly round, because it's an organic thing. So there, I've got that, and now it's just about layering. And I've got lots of color, or I have lots of water down here. So I could siphon it up, or I can be patient and leave it alone. I'll show you how I siphon that up. I pick up, actually, I try to get as much water off of this brush as I can, and I'm just going to go and use it like a straw. And it basically pulls the water or the extra water up because it's just way too much. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to use it like a little straw so it can drink up some of that extra water. So I'm not spending so much time waiting for that to dry, because this is just the first layer. And I could even move it out a little bit towards the drawing. And there we go. We've got that first layer pretty much done. Now we could go to work on our shadows while this is drying, or we can just start doing the second layer. And we just want to build layers. So they got the light color. Now I want to kind of have some highlights here. And I don't know, let me blot that a little bit. I can get a little light, maybe. So if you blot things, you can get more light. Here, I'm just going to kind of blot that out a little bit so I have some more light, and it's not actually needs to be curved like that. So you see, you can lift color up, and you can also, depending on the kind of color you have, like this is a staining red, and I've got a piece of pencil that's stuck in there. Now I'm going to get that out. Come on, get out. There we go. So now I'm just going to try to lift and blot and see if I can get some highlights. Pull back some highlights on this tomato. You can do it that way too. There's ways to keep your lights like that. Oh, that really is nice and light, but that's probably too light. That's okay. So this is going to be the thing, the red. I think red is probably the hardest thing to work with, but we're going to do this. I'm going to take some highlight part right in there. I'm just going to use clear water. I'm lifting some color out right here because I'm going to kind of leave, I really want that light to show right there. So I'm just going to blot out, right, and I just put color. Now that's kind of more the soft effect I was looking for. This is probably too light, but I'm not going to worry about it yet. It needs to dry. So what I think I need to do is we can do some more shadow down at the bottom here, below the tomato. So I think I'm going to use a purple. This is called Moon Glow. It's a really nice color for shadows. And I'm just going to put a little bit right below and a little layer right here. Now it's blending right in the tomato because I wasn't waiting. So that is, I'm just going to stop that because I let it, I'm just going to blot it out and just leave it alone for a minute. Sometimes it's just good to be patient. Maybe it's time to do some leaves. I'm working on our leaves. Let's do that. So I'm going to use a little smaller brush because that is just too much. So now I'm going to go back to my greens that I had. There they are. And I'm just going to detail the leaves now while I'm waiting for the red to dry. So I'm going to go a little bit of this darker green, and I'm just going to make some, just kind of detail them. And I'm going to just make a little darkness here and maybe a line because it shows a line kind of going up the leaf. And I'm just going to make it much darker down in this right here where the base of that leaf is. I'm going to go down here, just making some dark. I'm going to draw a line with my brush up. There we go, like that. And just detail it, kind of making shadows and light and dark. Same with this. I'm going to do the stem. It's going to make a little shadow, and I'm kind of thinking my light's coming up from here. And I'm not really, just making a little depth, adding some depth right down in here with a darker, not too dark, because you can always just layer and create layers and you'll get the effect you're looking for. And now here I could see I need a little darker right here because that stem kind of shadows over it. And then I just want to darken it right. Take that and bring that dark line here. Maybe I'll just make it nice and dark right there so that it kind of looks like it's shadowing over that. And I'll also do the same thing with this, just add a little, maybe just a little shadow going up here like that. And then also here, I'll just put a little bit of line. So that looks already more detailed. And I can add a little more layering right in here, just a little more darkness right at the base, at the stem area, just to kind of bring that out. And then also at this part. So now that looks, to me, it just looks better already. So it looks like I'm ready to do some more of the red. I think I want to get more intense with the red. And I'm really not sure how I'm going to do this because the red is a little bit of a problem. It's especially the reds I have. So this is the challenge. I'm going to take that bright red that I had and see if this will work. That bright red color, and I want to try it. And if it doesn't work, I can always blot it up. So I'm going to do it in this section up here just to see. And I'm just going to take that nice bright red. It's almost like a gouache. And if you have an opaque color, it isn't really a gouache, but it's very super, almost semi-opaque. Or so, I don't know what to call this. But I'm just going to bring it right to the very, just right to the edges of those leaves and the stem. And I'm going to concentrate that red in this area and see if this will help. And I'm just going to make that edge right to that edge. This is a fairly large picture. If you did a smaller one, of course, it'd be a little easier if you did like a 3-inch tomato rather than a 6-inch so that's very nice and bright. Now what I'll do is, while it's still wet, I'm going to take my rag. I'll give it a little time here. It's because it's pretty puddly. Maybe I'll just go ahead and do that on this one too. So I have my first wash, and now I'm just kind of going in with a nice bright, dense red. And I think it wouldn't hurt to use a gouache if you have something like that, or a poster paint, something. But you do want to keep that light. You want to have the areas that are light. So here I see where it needs to be done. So I'm going to take my rag, and hopefully this will work. I'm kind of curving it. I'm creating kind of a curve in the shape of the tomato. And I'm just going to do that. So I lifted it, and I was able to keep some of that light. And I can also take my brush, clean it out, get all of the color out. So which is you'll know it's all out when you have a clean rag. And then I'm just going to take that, and I'm going to try lifting it just that way. And you can also lift color out that way too. So I'm just trying to lighten that up just in the little part where I want that to highlight to show. And you just wipe off between your dabbings. And since this color is really dense, it's not really, and this rag is probably not the best rag because it's textured, but if you had like a Kleenex, it would be a lot easier. So I'm just lifting up color now a little bit. I'm just going to leave it like that. I'm just going to leave it alone. Sometimes it's good to leave it alone. Oh no, I can't leave it alone. There we are. Okay, now I'm just going to go ahead with that red and bring it around the whole tomato. I'm going to go ahead and do it and just play with it and lift color off. Lift it off. There, that's a beautiful red, nice and juicy. It could be, there we are. I'm just going to go all the way to the edge and then just bring it around. And I have to go work fast because this paper dries really fast. And this time I am using a smaller brush, but it's still loaded. It still loads up really nicely with color. So as long as I work fast and keep working right, you don't want to leave it off and go work on the other side. You want to stay, there we go, like this. And I'm just going to keep working around while everything is still wet. And I'm just going to be bold here. And almost around. But you can see I just keep, if I had started on this end, which was tempting, then I had that when the two ends meet, then you have the area where it looks like you've joined, where it's just a big seam and it wouldn't look right. So that's why you start in one and just flow towards the other side. Start one side and then flow to the other side. I'm just filling it all in. I'm kind of losing my light there, but I'm going to get it back. You have to step back. Sometimes it's good to just step back from something and look at it, take a look after and let it dry, of course, because drying is watercolor paints are way different when they dry. They're so much different than acrylic. The acrylic will dry the same color pretty much, and watercolors dry a good percentage lighter than they start out. I kind of like my little tomato right there. But I am going to lift some color, some light to keep my highlights. So to do that, you can see the highlight area here. And then there's low lights, there's dark areas. And that's what gives something shape or dimension. So now I'm going to I have to grab a Kleenex or something because obviously the rag won't do it. So I'll grab a tissue. And this should be a little bit better. To lift is a tissue. So And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to I see where I need to make some light. I'm going to make some light over on this side. And I'm going to try a different brush for that. I'm going to just, maybe this one's a little stiffer. Might be, but it might not work. We'll see. I just am using clear water only. And I'm just going to see what happens. I'm going to pull some color off. And the way I'm doing that is I'm just taking the brush and I'm just kind of going and lifting some color just to give that highlight back, because it did lose some of it. And this is one way that you can do that. I'll even add some looks like I have some light coming out through here. So I'm lifting that. So basically just dip it and clean your brush and then just go back in and pull the color off. It really works. And you can also dab it with your tissue. You can dab it to pull even more color. But the clear water reconstitutes the paint. And then you can just lift off with your tissue. Now you've got your lights coming back. Well, same thing, I see lots of more light up here, so I'm just going to put some color, or put just clear water up here. And now I'm going to lift it by dabbing, so I've got some light. I'll do the same thing here. I see a little place that needs a little highlight, so I'll just do that and then lift. So now my tomato is starting to take some kind of, it's becoming more dimensional now, I think. And like that. So there's some more light. And this also area needs a little light. So I'm going to take my brush, clear water, and I'm going to add a little light right in here. And then I'll just lift off. I'm rotating, finding a clean part of my Kleenex, and I'm lifting. And I could do the same. One more little spot. I think it needs actually. I could see also this tomato also has little puckers. I don't know what little to make a shape. It has like in this area here. I could see that it actually has a unique shape. It's not totally smooth and perfectly round. There we go. So now I'm going to leave that alone for now. Got some highlights in the tomato. And now I'm just going to start bringing in some low light. So I'm going to take right in this area. Of course, it's still too wet down in this area, but I can now add some shadows. We can just layer in shadows. I'm just going to put some more here. Maybe we can add shadows even when we're doing the, oh, this is a big puddle. I made a mess there. This red is very hard to control, this particular red that I'm using. I'm just going to lift that up a little bit. So once I have a chance to once this dries, because it's just still really wet down there, I'm going to go like that. So now it's kind of taking form without adding light. We're just adding, just lifting some color. And I'm going to just do a little bit of shadow, and I'm going to, with my red, and I'll add a little bit of that shadow color, sort of a purpley color this time. And I'm going to put it a little bit so I have a shadow underneath the leaf. Just going to do a little shadow color right here, just so that it, like that. And that's a little bit of purple mixed with the red. And I'm doing the same under this leaf here. Just going to create a little shadow. And I'll do it again under this leaf over here. This needs a shadow. Like that. So it just kind of looks like maybe light is hitting it. And I'll put a little bit under there, just to kind of bring out that leaf a little bit. Just maybe in between the little beginnings of these leaves. And I have if you find that too much, it just goes too much, you can always dab it up a little bit. Like that one just was too puddly, so I'm just dabbing it up a little, and I'm going to go ahead and redo it, but this time not so much liquid. This one actually goes all the way across the whole tomato. So that's creating a little more depth. And this, I'm going to use the same color down on this underside of the tomato. Now that it's kind of darkening, it's starting to dry a little bit. So I'm using that same purple color, or mixture of red and purple, or red and, I forget what that's called, Moon Glow. I'm just going to create another shadow color here, right below here. And then just kind of go around. And you might even want to go around your tomato just to give it, So I'm creating depth. And I'm going to do this. I'm just going to bring that color up a little farther, I think. And this is going over that red, which is really a challenge because the red wants to move around. It's not behaving. So I'm just going to make some more shadows. And this, I'm just going to kind of, at this time, really stylize this a little bit. I'm just going to bring that, I want that shape of the roundness to be more obvious. So that's why I'm just going to make a shape. I don't even know what that is, but I think I'll just bring it up all the way up here like this. Maybe join these two shapes together. So I'm just adding that kind of shadow shape color just to give it more roundness and to offset what's happening here too. So I'll just go around here and add that again. Add it, put it around here. There we are, like that. Let me just leave that little highlight down here because I think that looks kind of different. A little highlight. Or maybe I should close it up. We'll see. I think. Yeah, maybe just leave a little highlight. But really just adding layers and keep adding layers to your painting. So I think it needs to dry a little bit. I think I would like to make it just as dark. Maybe this will match what's up here. And we can always add more shadow color down below. That blue color that we had started, or this blue background color, I think I could just add it a little bit, make it a little bit more dramatic down below there. And I'll do that by I'm not going to touch, I don't want to touch that tomato because it'll just bleed right into it. So this time I'm just doing a little, like maybe just a little bit like this. And just to kind of enhance that shadow or contrast. I'm not going to go all the way out. I'm just going to go just partially out from the original shadow like that. Or if I want to, I can go all the way out. It just depends. You have to look at it and it will, speak to you. This looks a little better, I think. So I'll just go ahead and fill that in and bring it farther out because I like that. A little more dramatic. So then you can always add detail as you go along, but you'll notice once you take the tape off, it'll look way different. And just keep adding shadows and layers, or just little layers until it becomes the shape you want. This is starting to take shape. It's not all there, but I really like to, it just has to dry. So, but you get the idea, I hope, and I'd love to see what you've done.